With us on set is Rick Dobbis, and he is the former president of Sony Music International. And now he's even on to bigger and better things, if you can imagine that. I'm so grateful and so excited to have him on set with me. And we're going to talk a little bit about his music background and take you all the way up to what he's doing now. Welcome to the set. How are you?
Thanks. I'm very good and happy to be here.
Good. Me too. I'm actually honored that you're here. What a great, fantastic guest you are. How did you get involved in the music industry?
Well, I went to Syracuse University and got my degree in zoology. So, but my heart was, you know, when people say, you know, do what you really love, and although that's maybe not always the best advice, I realized I wasn't tremendously gifted in the sciences, but I loved music, so I decided that maybe I could work in music. And I was not very talented, so as a musician, so I thought I have to be on the other side. And I started doing in that old-fashioned way, looking for places that might be interested in reading my resume and the articles that I wrote for the paper at school about music.
And that's how you did it, like rung by rung. It wasn't like somebody just all of a sudden you woke up one day and you're the president of Sony Music International.
No, actually,
hard work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And in fact, sorry to interrupt you, I got an entry-level position which was amazing at CBS Records, and it was terrific for a couple of reasons. One is, it was a job that was so low on the totem pole that you know, I had the opportunity to make mistakes and ask a lot of questions, and people assumed I didn't know anything, which was correct. And also, my first boss was a woman, and it was 1970, and that was a very important life lesson, how she was treated and how our department was treated. And I think that laid the groundwork for me being a better executive.
Wow. That's really great insight. I didn't realize that. So that made it changed the culture, I guess, for you, and how you were, if you were in a position, you were going to do things differently.
Well, it made me see that everybody deserves to be treated for their ability.
Now, one of the things that you were telling me about in the green room was how you got to work with the Rolling Stones. What was that like? Well,
I left Sony Music when Sony Music and BMG, another company, merged, and I decided to take some time off. And I've been traveling all over the world for about 12 or 13 years, and I thought, well, I said to my partner, Mary, let's do some American travel, and which we did. And I got a phone call one day from a fellow named Paul McGuinness, who was a very good friend of mine and was a colleague, who was the manager of U2 from their first days as teenagers till he retired last year. And he called me and he said, hey, I just had lunch with Mick Jagger. And you remember Mick? You met him at a party at my house. I said, yeah, I remember that. I'm sure he remembers me. But he said, he asked me if I could get involved in their business because they're going to make a new album and go on a big tour. And I told him I was too busy with U2. But when I asked him a little further about what he was really looking for and what kind of help he was looking for, I suggested that he call you. And so I gave him your number. Is that okay? So I said, yeah, that's okay. So every day for 3 weeks when my phone rang, I was assumed it was going to be Mick Jagger. And the phone rang a lot in 3 weeks, but it was never Mick Jagger. That was in September. In December, so I figured that's not on the agenda.
Call, right?
This is life.
Call, right.
I was talking to another friend of mine who's one of the attorneys who represents the Rolling Stones and has for a long time. And he said to me, hey, by the way, are you still interested in talking to Mick? Because he'd really like to talk to you. So I said, yeah. And then I was waiting for my phone to ring, and it did ring, and a voice on the other end, which was unmistakable, said, is this Rick Dobbis? I said, yes. He said, this is Mick Jagger. I said, yeah, I recognized your voice. And I thought, well, this is not off to a good start. But he was terrific. I loved working with them. He's a wonderful man.
And what did you do for them? What did you do for the Stones?
Well, they were about to start making a new album, and they needed someone, since they really don't have a traditional artist manager. And in fact, the person who had looked after a lot of their business interests was ill at that point and wasn't very involved anymore. Prince Rupert von Lohenstein. How's that? Okay. So they really needed somebody to look after the recording process, from how it works with the record company, how to put the album out, how to work it, how to look after their catalog, which at that point was at two different companies, and they didn't always have a great relationship with the second company that had the earlier stuff, but you want to make sure it's all coordinated.
So you can do those best of albums, right? Is that why? So they can blend
yes.
it, or?
Well, also the earlier catalog was controlled by a company that they did not have a great relationship with for a variety of business reasons.
Okay.
And as it happened, which he didn't know that at the time, I had had a relationship with the head of that company, who's now passed away. His name is Alan Klein, who's a fascinating figure in the music business, who managed at one point the Rolling Stones and the affairs of the Beatles. So, but anyway, Alan was a difficult guy in many ways, but brilliant. But I had dealt with him when I was at Polygram, and I felt comfortable that I could actually coordinate all of that needed to go on. And I got the opportunity to go on their tour and spent not every date, but a lot of dates all over the world. And the album did well, and the tour did amazing, and it was a great experience because they're terrific people.
And what a show. I mean, they've got the blow up things that happen, and it's very visual. It's very intense. It's a very interactive experience with their audience.
Well, that particular tour, which is called The Bigger Bang, opened at Fenway Park in Boston. And I'm a big baseball fan, so the rehearsals were at Fenway Park. But the towers that were on the stage were taller than the Green Monster.
Wow.
So in fact, I went up to the top of one of the towers, because the public wasn't allowed there, but I went up to the top during the rehearsals, and I looked down on the Green Monster, which is fantastic. And the screen was huge, and the show was amazing and very involving. And they also did something very unusual, which is they alternated indoor dates and outdoor dates on the same tour, which I don't know that anybody else does, because it means two different sets. And, and there were two sets of steel for the outdoor shows because it took so long to build and take down. It was a massive, massive enterprise. It was headed by a guy named Michael Cole, who's brilliant. It was a lot of fun. And
you worked with other artists. You went on to work with Yanni.
Yeah, I worked with Yanni for a year and a half, sort of the, way on the other end of the spectrum, but a very talented man. And that was, another learning experience. I mean, one of the things that is interesting and has been interesting for me in doing the work that I've done in music is every artist, every creator, every place in the world that you come into contact with, if you look, you'll find something interesting, you'll find really smart people, really talented people, and particularly with the traveling, you find people who really want you to understand their culture and their world and their perspective, and that's a great education. So it's been an honor to do that work, and a fantastic way to spend a long period of my life. 120 to 130 days a year travel, but I loved it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that I love what I do, because it's such a privilege to get to talk to people like yourselves, because I meet a variety of different people. So I might not personally get to live every single one of their lives, but through you and through sharing with the audience, I get a taste of that, which is so exciting for me. So after you were doing the music industry, working so many long and crazy hours, you said now you're at a point in your life where you get to do what you want, like things that light you up, things that make you happy. So what are you working on now?
Well, I got interested in two sort of disparate areas, but they connect, in my mind, they connect. One of the things I looked at when I left Sony Music was what areas of music was there a lot of growth potential. And I knew the Latin business because I was responsible for the Latin business in the United States as well as the rest of the world. And it was sort of an obvious call that Latin music would continue to expand and grow and be important all over the world. And the other area, actually, oddly enough, was children's music, because I recognized that children's music, family music, had periods where it was very popular, very successful, very well exposed in the media. And then it was not, and at that time it was not exposed in the media. There was a great TV show on Nick called Jack's Big Music Show that had been canceled, and the artists who were exposed and doing quite well, finding a good audience, appearing on that show and being featured on that show, were now sort of wandering in the distance and wandering on the internet where their audience really wasn't looking for them. So a partner and myself, his name is Richard Ellis, we got involved. We decided let's explore this area, and we did two things. We started a music label in partnership with Universal Music Group, which is the biggest music company in the world, and we started My KaZoo TV as a platform for artists. It's web-based, and we feature apps as well. But it's a place where artists who are creating music for kids and families that's original. It's not. I have nothing against Michael Row Your Boat and The Wheels on the Bus, but some new, real, fresh things with fresh perspective that's current. So we started My KaZoo TV. But at the same time, so there I was working with visual as well as audio entertainment. And I'd done other things in the music business where I was involved in presentations and music videos and other television shows. So I had an interest in other things that could be expressed through audiovisual entertainment. So I started doing a bunch of projects, and I did one called Fire Bombers, which was about aerial firefighting that won the History Channel competition at the New York Television Festival year before last, and I have another thing in competition this year. And from that, I started to learn what your wonderful crew does and how they do it, and how much fun it can be to be on a team that's doing this kind of work. And my partner, Marianne, who's my partner in life as well as in business, had written a story about the new executive director of the Navy SEAL Museum, which is located in Fort Pierce, Florida, not far from where we have a place. And he's a fascinating guy, recently retired SEAL, who had been on active duty, and then when he got a little older, he went into logistics and was part of the team that planned the Bin Laden raid, and was in Black Hawk Down in Mogadishu as an active duty soldier, as a Navy SEAL at that point. Excuse me. And he was so interesting, and we started talking about stories and things that he was aware of, and we came across a story about the Navy SEALs who saw their first combat, was they were formed by President Kennedy. They saw their first combat in Vietnam. And those original SEALs, some of them are plank holders, what they call the original first group. And they had worked with a local Vietnamese man as their combat interpreter, who became really a part of their family, and walked point and was wounded and treated by American hospitals, and was this little man in these big SEALs. He was part of the team. When the SEALs left Vietnam, he did not. And they left actually, their mission there ended before the end of the war. And the assumption was, since he was a well-known collaborator, that he would have been executed after the war. And so they thought he was dead. Years later, when our relationship as a country opened up with Vietnam, one of the men who had served with him decided to go looking for him. And of course, he couldn't Google him. But he was able eventually, it's a long, interesting story, you'll have to see the film. It's called A Bond Unbroken, The Why of Min. Min is his name. After 45 years, they found that he was alive, and the SEAL community now helps support him. And they brought him to the United States. We filmed all of the reunion and all the stories. And then we went to Vietnam and did some more filming in Vietnam, which is fascinating, amazing place. And we did a party at his home. So guys that he didn't see when he visited the United States, he saw for the first time in 47 years. It was fantastic. It's
beautiful.
So
absolutely beautiful.
You know, to me, it all comes together in that one of the things you learn, if you know, as a fan of music, is that a lot of music is about what you feel in here, and a lot of it's about storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And so storytelling is fascinating to me, and that's what you do, and your audience benefits because they get to meet a lot of people, and you bring out people who don't know how to stop talking, like me.
Oh no, but it's perfect. Thank you. I'm really excited to know this.
So you know, I find that that's the link that keeps me interested. And we have another project we're thinking about a really amazing woman who was a pioneer in many ways, and I'll tell you about that another time if we move ahead. We have meetings next week. We have the life rights. So this has become the stuff that interests me. And one other thing I'd like to add is that we are partnered with WGBH in Boston, in the kids side, on a new project called Jam Hotel that's music-centric. So they're sort of tying the storytelling and the music together, and they're a terrific partner, and they're a terrific producer. And I serve on the board of an organization called Education Through Music, which partners with schools in New York City, and we have an affiliate in LA, and this year we're in 25 schools, 50,000 students that are benefiting from our program of bringing full music curriculum into the schools. And that organization, Education Through Music, which we call ETM, is overseeing the curriculum for the Jam Hotel show. So it's an opportunity to bring all of these interests into one project.
You're a master collaborator. You really are. And you know, when you were talking about the station in Boston, it reminded me of my childhood because I grew up with Zoom, which was 02134, send it to Zoom, you know? And I learned how to do this. You know, so the audience at home that's like watching, this is what you do, and you can't forget that. And you learn how to send a SAISY, which is a self-addressed stamped envelope. So they're known for all their wonderful children's work that they've been doing, and it's fascinating to meet you and to hear about all the things that you're doing.
No, thank you.
A friend of mine once said, "Why earn a living when you can build a legacy?" And I think that you're doing just that for yourself and for so many people. So, and My KaZoo TV, the zoo is really big. So I thought it must be a tie back to your degree in zoology.
Well, in a way, you know, frankly, that's not the only association.
Okay.
My father, who was a wonderful man, he's passed away now, was not thrilled that I was leaving zoology and, you know, Jewish doctor is what he wanted, right?
Right.
And I was interested in being in the music business and working with music, and he wasn't thrilled about that. But I learned a lot in my education that was valuable and has been valuable and continues to be valuable in life. So I think it was time well spent, and it's kept me intellectually curious. My dad, who was not a performer, he was a amateur performer. And he sang and played the kazoo. And in fact, 3 years in a row, he was the opening act on New Year's Eve for Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes at the Capitol Theater in Passaic, New Jersey. So, which is a crazy story, but another time. So somehow the zoo leaked into and ties up all of these things.
I got a little teary because I had forgotten something. My grandfather played the kazoo. So every Sunday when we'd go over for breakfast, he'd always open up his second drawer and he'd play music for us, and he'd play different things, and he would play his kazoo and he would play his harmonica. Those were the two instruments that were in his drawer. So like I said, it's not often that I'm brought to tears on my show, but that was amazing. So there's two websites that people can reach you at, right? My KaZoo, I'm gonna, like my makeup's gonna flush right off, Rick. But it is what two websites if they want to learn more?
They are mykazootv.com.
Okay, right.
And the other one is r-dog.biz, because r-dog is actually named in honor of our first dog who's now passed away. But it stands for Rick Dobbis Organization Global, and it's at a .biz, so r-dog.biz.
Well, I look forward to knowing you and to celebrating all the things that you're creating. Thank you so much for spending a little time with us today.
It's been my great pleasure. I really love what you're doing, and I think bringing positive messages to an audience is a good calling, and you're lucky to do it and smart to do it.
Thank you so much. So you're going to help me live it up once in a while, right?
You bet.
Woohoo! All right, stay tuned for more Donna Drake, Rick Dobbis. We're having a lot of fun here today. Thanks so much.